Ever since Boruto received Momoshiki's Karma Seal, the conversation around the strength of the character and the abilities he should receive have always been a focal point in the Boruto fandom, and for good reason. The story itself has never addressed why Boruto doesn't have the abilities of Momoshiki, nor has it confirmed whether he has the strength of Fused Momoshiki or Base Momoshiki. However, I do believe that I've found the answer to both of those questions since they're somewhat intertwined. You see, in any story from any medium, there's always a source from which a character draws their power. And better yet, which is more applicable in this case, there's always a place where that power is stored. In a general sense, that place would be the body itself, which means destroying the body would also mean destroying the source of that power. And as we see in Naruto, losing a body part can make you weaker and reduce the efficiency of your chakra output, and that is because chakra itself is generated by combining your mental and physical energy gained from every cell within your body. So what if the Otsutsuki also abide by that concept, in that the power they receive is stored in those pointy objects at the top of their heads called horns? You see, I came to this conclusion after noticing a consistent pattern of the Otsutsuki's horns getting bigger after they attain more power. We first saw this after Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit due to her lacking the power needed to defend herself. Initially, Kaguya didn't have any horns and only displayed abilities through the use of her Byakugan. She then later gained the Ren Sharingan along with 2 horns after consuming a mature chakra fruit, which is basically the combined power of the 10 tails, the chakra absorbed from the planet, and the sacrificed Otsutsuki. We then later saw the same thing with Oroshiki after he consumed his own Renegons. This one is even more damning since it drives home the point of power being stored in different sections of the body. This makes sense because, as we learned back in Naruto, the Renegon itself supplied chakra and power to its user. This was explained by Obito back in the 4th Great War. So basically what Oroshiki did was consume the power stored within his own Renegons along with the genetic data that supplies that power, thus providing a sudden rush of power throughout his own body, which resulted in him evolving. What this means is that the Renegon itself stores power that isn't stored anywhere else within the body, even though it's a part of the body itself. The same goes for the Sharingan and the Byakugan. Not only do you get access to abilities your regular eye doesn't provide, the Sharingan itself and different stages to the Dojutsu provides a different level of chakra boost as stated by Shishui when using his Mangekyo. He stated that the chakra is several times more than with a normal Sharingan, so the targets fall into a visual jutsu instantly. What this means is that even though you have a dojutsu in your own eye socket, there's a restriction on how much power you can draw from it based on the level you have active. It's very similar to Goku going Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3 to access different levels of power stored within his own body. So Oroshiki consuming his Renegon removed the restriction and gave him instant access to all the power within his own dojutsu. This of course brings us to Momoshiki, who experienced a similar change after he consumed Kinshiki's genetic data and his power. We can clearly see that his horns grew exponentially longer in both iterations of the character, which again draws a correlation with the increase in power and the increase in size of the Otsutsuki's horn. Now this could mean one of 3 things. 1. This was just done for aesthetics and has no meaning in the story whatsoever. 2. The horn does increase in size when the Otsutsuki gains more power, but that doesn't mean that the power itself is stored within the horns. Or 3. The horn does increase in size when the Otsutsuki gains more power and the power itself is stored within the horn. Obviously I'm going with option 3 because along with the evidence I provided above, it's also heavily implied by Momoshiki and the circumstances surrounding his death. You see, as I mentioned in my prior video on the topic, it makes perfect sense why Boruto should possess the powers and abilities of Fused Momoshiki, since that's the purpose of the Karma Seal. It basically allows the Otsutsuki to transfer their consciousness and the power they've attained to a new body, which then allows them to resurrect and use that power. It wouldn't make sense that the Otsutsuki would lose all the power they've attained and just revert back to their base power level every time they underwent karmic resurrection, especially since that's their way of getting stronger. This was even explained to us in chapter 75, where it's revealed that Shiba Otsutsuki underwent multiple karmic resurrections and became so powerful that he likely ascended to a higher plane of existence. This proves that the power gained is retained and transferred to the new vessel, which should have been the case for Boruto as well, but for some reason it wasn't. My hypothesis is that Fused Momoshiki's power and abilities weren't transferred over because his horns were destroyed before he was able to implant his Karma Seal. We see that this is the case in the anime since it shows his horns getting vaporized and then he goes to implant karma. This even makes more sense in the manga since Momoshiki's entire body was erased before the scene where he implanted karma occurred. Now you could actually argue that he implanted karma before dying but was just choosing to present himself to Boruto at that point in time, which would be fine since as shown in the anime, he only did this after the horns were destroyed. What if this is actually the reason why Momoshiki appears to be in base form post-death? Although we didn't see this happen, what if in that instant before implanting karma, Momoshiki reverted back to his base form after his horns were destroyed, thus causing him to lose the amplification gained from Kinshiki's power? This would actually explain why Momoshiki's horns are showing as destroyed post-death as well. His horns grew because of the power increase he received from Kinshiki, so when Boruto's Rasengan vaporized those extended horns, it also damaged the original. And since the Karma Seal is a backup of the Otsutsuki, it can only take a screenshot or a snapshot of what is currently there, not what was there before. Thus the Momoshiki copied over was the one with his damaged horns that reverted back to his base form. Now, I know this might be hard to believe, but I've seen stranger things, like 95% of you guys not being subscribed to the channel. Like, come on guys, it's been a while. So, if you like the content, don't be afraid to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when I post new content. Now, some will still say that this is still Fused Momoshiki, but that doesn't really make sense since he doesn't look anything like Fused Momoshiki. His horns have reverted back to the base Momoshiki design, his Byakugans are no longer golden, he doesn't have the black markings on his skin, and even the clothing reverted back to the base Momoshiki design. It's similar to when Goku merges with Vegeta and gets new clothing, but once they separate, the clothing they had before just returns unscathed. It's also very similar to Madara when he absorbed the Ten Tails and gained a new drip, but then lost it once the power itself was removed. Everything just points to Momoshiki not having the power he had before. The only thing that would make it make sense is if the horns theory is in fact true. Another thing I found interesting is this specific scene. Now, why was Momoshiki so terrified at the prospect of Boruto breaking off his horn? And it's not just Boruto regaining control, it seems as if that would affect him in a negative way. And as we can see, the horns never grew back. So again, it seems like the power itself is concentrated in that area. What's also weird is that before Boruto broke the horn itself, he said that it felt like it would help. But why? Why would Boruto feel like doing so would suppress Momoshiki's power? It's almost like Boruto can subconsciously feel the power concentrated in that one area. Now you might be wondering why Boruto's horn looks different from Fused Momoshiki or Base Momoshiki, but I've already covered that in a video from last year in October, which you guys can go check out after this one. It pretty much explains why Boruto's horn design was influenced by Shibai's DNA after Toneri did something to Boruto per Uroshiki's statements. Again, for more details, check out that video. Another thing I found quite interesting, which kinda supplements the theory itself, is Kinshiki's power and speed seemingly decreasing post losing a piece of his horn to Sasuke. We can see that he never used lightning release to amp his speed or strength when fighting Sasuke and the Kage, even though he was able to casually use the technique versus Sasuke prior to losing a piece of his horn. Kinshiki was also pretty pissed at Sasuke for doing so that he set out to end him personally. Now I know that it's a bit contrived, but we can't just ignore all the evidence that points to this being the case, no matter how ridiculous it may seem. Yes, if this is true, it's weird that they would be so vulnerable when it comes to losing the power they acquired. However, it does make sense at the same time since there must be some consequence to acquiring such power. Maybe a biological Boruto. Kawaki has access to Ishiki's full abilities and is slowly gaining more power because Ishiki implanted his karma and only got to around 80% prior to losing karma, so even Kawaki doesn't have the full power of Ishiki Otsutsuki. Now I know that Code said that Kawaki is within him as stated by Amado, so Kawaki really is just 80% Otsutsuki as he was prior to losing Ishiki's karma. Code really has no base board within their horns, and that's why Boroshiki has never. Just let me know why in the comment section. And while you're down there, remember to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.